G'day, Internet. Max right here, and we are halfway through a conversation. Actually, I've just been having an absolutely amazing conversation with Dirk from Intelligent Cryptocurrency, and we've been talking about big issues, macro issues, the big picture for Bitcoin, the 4 year cycle. And it was just honestly one of the highest level conversations we've had in a while. It's been super fun. We just finished that, and that video is posted over on Dirk's channel. The very first link in the description is going to be a link to that video. I highly recommend you go and check that out, either first or second, either way. But right now, we're going to talk about a little bit about crypto regulation, where it's going to go over the next few years. We might be talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum flipping at some point in the future. And so we got some really fun stuff to talk about here now. So, Dirk, why don't I throw back to you? What do you kind of think is going to happen here with the regulation? You just talked about Tornado Cash, and that's put a huge cloud over the whole area, the whole industry. What do you think is going to happen here with regulation, and what do you think is going to happen with crypto and its ability to either work with it or repel it and say we don't care?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's this two different camps in crypto, and the one camp is really the diehard believers in the technology, that it's going to be our freedom and it's going to change the world. And then you have the other camp, which is purely just, people who speculate on it. They don't really care about the tech. So there's also this camp that really thinks, privacy coins are here. They're going to allow us to create our own currency. We're going to be able to, separate money from the state and that kind of thing. And it just doesn't seem like that is realistically possible because as we've been seeing over the last year or two, I mean, recently the US just said anyone who uses this Ethereum mixer, Tornado Cash, it's illegal and you can go to prison and you can get fines and stuff like that. They can do the same with privacy coins, all that kind of stuff. So any narrative where I think something is powerful enough to really be private and circumvent the current financial system, it's just going to be cut off or at least pushed down in such a way that, it can't achieve mass adoption. So, yeah, I think regulation is coming, and I think it's going to be a lot harder for most coins to survive. I mean, what we've seen in the last bull run, there's like 15, 16,000 altcoins now, and most of them are all, scams or shit coins or money grabs. And I think that's going to stop at some point. But the question is, it's going to be hard to see how are they going to do that because these blockchains are decentralized, right? On Ethereum, anyone can go create a coin. Anyone could create a coin on Binance Smart Chain. How are they going to stop this? I'm not too sure. So I do think it's going to be important to understand which coins you're holding and why you're holding them, and understand that probably the vast majority, probably like you said about, the .com companies there, only a few percent are really going to survive. And I really do think that's the case with crypto.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And then I think timing is a critical thing here. So I chat a lot to the privacy coins people, and I do believe it is essential technology. And it will be around, and people are going to use it at some point. But for right now, I think the vast majority of people don't really care about privacy. Maybe that's a little bit sad, but I think it is what it is. Like Michael Saylor, for example, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He tweets out his balance every month, right? So he's not trying to hide his Bitcoin balance. And especially in the Western world, we're very lucky and privileged here. I don't spend Bitcoin at all. Like I don't care about payment rails for Bitcoin. For me, I hoard my Bitcoin. I want to spend my cash. Get rid of my cash. Who cares? Cash is garbage. I want to keep the Bitcoin. So I don't spend Bitcoin to buy coffee or whatever. And so I don't ever spend it. If I want to do something anonymous, I use cash. It's way more easier. It's way easier to do it if I want to buy something anonymous to do it with cash. So right now, even I don't really care about privacy, and I'm like quite into this world. But I think there's something very interesting. I think it's a very, very important to understand that desperate governments do desperate things, and we've seen that. We've seen that throughout history over and over and over again. But just like, for example, I mean, just look what's happened in the last year or two. Um, the American government seizing Russian oligarchs' bank accounts and assets because this is Russian individuals because Russia invaded. Like that's just never been done before. Never ever been done before. Look at Trudeau and the Canadian truckers. It's like Canadian truckers, we don't want to wear masks. We're not going to do this nonsense anymore. Okay, we're going to take your life savings. Yep, your bank account's just been frozen. So everything you've ever worked for your entire life, we just snatched it. Now, This is in relatively good times. The economy is booming. When the economy is in deep recession, next time that occurs, when there's food shortages, or there's riots in the streets because inflation of food went so high that people can't afford food. When these kinds of things happen, governments will crack down on stuff. So here's how I kind of see it. I'll map it out for the next like 10 years. We're going to go into a pretty deep, big recession. The government is going to print a whole bunch of money eventually to get us out of this recession. And then there's going to be a flood, a run. Like, people are going to get into crypto like more than you've ever seen before. And they're going to start seeing it as more and more of a threat. And I think they already are with the things like Tornado Cash. But at some point, they're just going to say, we lose to this. Like, okay, crypto wins. But they're not going to go with that fight. They're going to say, okay, all crypto is banned. They're going to say, it's crazy what they're going to do. When governments get desperate, it is just incredible what they do. Their tyranny is revealed. They become just murderous sociopaths if they have to. They start wars. There's nothing that powerful people won't do to keep power. And so at some point, Bitcoin will force their hand. Crypto will force their hand. And I love this. This is like Gandhi, right? Gandhi said, it's the obligation of the civil disobedient to force their enemies to reveal themselves as the tyrants they are, as the violence motivated people that they are. And so, he would, he walked down to the beach and picked up some salt and said, "Here, I'm not paying tax on your salt." And he got arrested. People got arrested. It's like, great. The whole world saw that the British Empire just claimed salt, this naturally occurring thing, and then decided to tax it, and then sent in policemen with men's and batons and things and imprisoned this guy because he wasn't willing to pay it. And their violence was revealed. And that single act, well, a few things happened other than that, but helped contribute to the fall of the greatest empire the world had ever seen at the time. Bitcoin is our peaceful mechanism. It's our picking up of the salt. We go and we engage in Bitcoin, we sell our cash and we buy our Bitcoin. And that's us saying, we don't want any part of your corrupt, immoral system anymore. But at some point, they're going to throw a tantrum that we left the system, right? And they are going to get more and more desperate, and they will reveal their violence more and more, hurting us in there. Just recently, from this same sort of in the realm of this Tornado Cash thing, the computer programmer who wrote the code to anonymize the cash, which, by the way, has a lot of legitimate uses. If I have an employee and I'm paying them, I don't want my competition to know what their salary is and how much I'm paying them.
Exactly.
Right? So it would make sense for me to use this mixer to anonymize that so that I can pay them, and my competitors don't know how much I'm paying them. So there's a lot of legitimate uses for this. But desperate governments, we can't have people having this stuff. So they went and put the guy who wrote the code. He didn't do anything illegal. He just wrote the code to create this product that has legitimate uses. And then they went and threw him in jail.
Right.
So this concept is really, really significant. And people have no idea how tyrannical governments can get. You would think that after the last 2 years, since 3 years since the pandemic, you would think that people, it's drilled into their head now that, oh my God, they can do anything they want whenever they want, and there's enough blind people out there who will follow blindly. You would think that would happen, but no, people still underestimate just how evil and crazy governments can get. And when they want to shut something down, they come at it full force. And at that point, then all of a sudden these privacy coins and things are going to become much more valuable. But when does that happen? How far away does that happen? I don't know. I'm not sure when that tide turns, but I think it could be 10 years, could be 20 years. I don't know. But at some point, those privacy coins will become very valuable. Now, will the market cap of privacy coins be over and above the market cap of Bitcoin? No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not saying it becomes more valuable. I'm just saying that it becomes a lot more valuable than it is now. And maybe as a percentage return basis, maybe it's a fantastic investment, privacy coins.
It's going to be interesting to see, because they've already done this, for example, with Binance in Australia, and a couple of exchanges where they've forced the exchange to delist, for example, Monero. So they can do this with any of the centralized exchanges, basically being like, you can't operate in our country unless you delist these privacy coins. And if they're not on centralized exchanges, it becomes a lot harder for the masses to actually buy it. So do you really think privacy coins have a chance?
Well, I do, for this reason, because I have faith in the technologists to produce technology to circumvent those issues. we have like so the ever so we, you know we talk about DeFi, right? And so DeFi right now, it's like good for crypto to crypto, and there's no, but it's also kind of siloed, meaning you can operate within the Ethereum network over here in this DeFi, or you can operate within the BNB over here. But technologists are working on it, and it's kind of here. So the beginning of cross-chain swaps, the beginning of that was like what used to be called atomic swaps.
Yeah.
You could do it. It was clumsy and not really didn't really take off. Now we have something called peer-to-pool cross-chain swaps, things like Thorchain. That's still in its infancy, but it's there. But I have absolute faith that the technology will be produced. Again, this is like just market forces. The bigger government it becomes, the more offensive, the more overwhelming, the more tyrannical it comes, the greater the market need for products to deal with that, which means more and more people start working on trying to solve that problem. And so eventually, yeah, there'll be ways to go back and forth between, because they might come out with a Fed coin, all right?
Yeah.
That's completely reasonable. It's like, okay, ban Bitcoin, everyone has to use a Fed coin. That's totally something that I could see them doing. But people will still use Bitcoin and people will still use privacy coins, and they'll go back and forth between the two without any central authority. So, yeah, they can ban it at Kraken and Coinbase and whatever else and Binance, but they can't ban it on the DeFi networks. And the DeFi networks, the technology will get better and better so that you can go cross chain. So, solutions will come up. It'll be like, as we often hear in this space, the revolution will be decentralized because it has to be.
Yeah.
Because to revolt against the tyrannical and immoral system that they've built that impoverishes us and helps them, it has to be decentralized or else it won't work. That's why gold doesn't work. Because in order for gold to be a useful currency, you got to go and stick it in a vault. And then if I want to pay for a cup of coffee, the vault managers deduct the gold from my account, add the gold to your account, and that's how it works. But now the gold's sitting in a vault somewhere. Well, men with guns come and take it. Boom. Centralized solution didn't work. And so that's kind of thing. So I want to fire back a question for you if I can. Maybe some more fun stuff. We've heard about the Ethereum and Bitcoin flippening for a long, long time. 2017, a lot of people were sure it was going to happen. It didn't. People were sure it was going to happen in the last cycle. It didn't. I got a question for you. Two prong. Is Ethereum ever going to flip Bitcoin in terms of market cap? And if you do think it does, is it going to happen in the next 3 years?
That's a tough one. So I think a lot is obviously dependent on how the merge is going to go and how this transition to proof of stake is going to go. A lot of people are saying, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's going to be, Ethereum's deflationary, and like there's no more need for the miners. We have the validators now. It's going to be faster, cheaper, all that kind of stuff. But there's still no guarantee that it is going to work out as planned. They've been trying to transition it for a long time. There've been a lot of delays. So I think the flipping could happen at some point, but I don't think it's actually going to happen anytime soon. And if I were to guess, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. This is a really tough one, right? It's hard to know these things. Yeah, the merge is important, how it goes down, but I think they've really exposed themselves with a little bit of a vulnerability, a security vulnerability. So yes, like they're probably ESG compliant now. It's a lot much less footprint in terms of energy production, and so maybe it becomes like the darling of the space because it's like satisfies the ESG requirements or something. In which case, it would have a huge boom, and maybe its market cap does overtake Bitcoin. But I think ultimately they've given themselves a vulnerability in that it's now easier for, we're talking about tyrannical governments, it's easier for tyrannical governments to work with the validators and the proof of stake miners. There's a much smaller percentage of them. It's a lot less decentralized. And they can just start rounding up people and putting in jail if they don't start blocking addresses and doing things like that. Which, if that happens, there'll be a huge migration away from it. So it's a really interesting one, and I am just like completely on the fence 50-50 about it. It could
Another
be that
thing,
this merge messes up and the price of
yeah.
the Ethereum gets demolished. Who knows?
And another thing to consider is that Ethereum only has this market cap basically because of this pure speculation that has happened every time. So in 2017, we had the ICOs. That was a huge bubble. Everyone was buying Ethereum to buy the ICOs. That model is gone. ICOs are dead. Then now we had DeFi. People were locking up their Ethereum. Okay, DeFi, a lot of it has kind of been exposed as well. It's just a basically just a giant Ponzi scheme because it's where's the yield coming from? We've seen Celsius blown up and all this kind of stuff, right? So we've seen
Mm.
that a lot of the DeFi was all not what was claimed to be. And then we had the NFT hype, which was causing everyone to buy ETH to be able to buy NFTs. But NFT, that bubble is also kind of popping. I don't know if it's going to come back in the same way that it was. So what is the next thing going to be that is going to cause people to want to hoard ETH? Maybe proof of stake that they can stake it, but for the average person, maybe the yield isn't that attractive. So what is going to be that next thing that's really going to push Ethereum up?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think you go from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and you definitely go into higher risk, higher return.
Yeah.
There's so many more problems there with it, but the potential is also significantly higher. So it's interesting. I as a long term thing, I tend to like the Bitcoin model better, which is you have a very simple base layer of Bitcoin, and then you do some more experimental things on another layer, like with the Lightning Network, and people can build on top of it on other scale. But I think it's a mistake to in the long term mistake, but I think it's a great marketing push and it sounds great and there's so many much potential upside to the Ethereum strategy, which is to make the currency do so much more than just be the currency. But then the problem is at some point they're going to do a merge. They're going to try and add a new feature because they're trying to because right they've got themselves in this world where they're trying to compete against Binance and they compete against SOL and all these other like layer ones, right? So they're competing against all of them. Well, the only way to compete against them is to rapidly innovate. But you rapidly innovate, you're going to break stuff. It's like
Yeah.
by definition you're going to break stuff, and so those things are just going to happen along the way. And we saw this like just recently with the they did a was it on the SOL network, the Sol network, where some hacker just minted like $1 billion worth of coins or something, and they had to try and roll it back, and it was a huge problem. I could be getting the details of that story probably incorrect, but that was a new feature they tried to roll out, and there was a vulnerability in it, and it destroyed the network. So I think ultimately this thing about all these layer ones competing against each other. They're competing each other on rapid innovation, and it's one after the other, after the other, after the other. They're going to get bit in the ass,
Yeah.
and it's going to come crashing down. Let me throw you another one. Let's think about the next boom cycle. Are there any altcoin projects that you think are going to be like, yeah, this is the winner? I can't wait for price to bottom so I can ape into A, B, or C project.
I think there's quite a few actually. Obviously not financial advice, but I think if we do get this crash, that I think we're both expecting in the next couple of months, it might actually happen in the next 1 to 2 months. September is usually a bit of a shakeout month, so if we do really go that low, I think there's going to be a lot of coins that are going to at least do a 10x or a 20x in the next bull market. We saw it in 2018. There were coins that went down 99%. And if you had bought those, you could do 50x, 100x. So, I mean, in terms of coins, there's a couple. I mean, I think Sol will probably do that from the lows. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Woo Network is a very nice one. It's a Singaporean exchange that allows for derivative trading with zero fees. And I think in general, a pretty safe, like, kind of safe bet would be like the exchange coins because they're real businesses. They make a lot of money, right? We're talking about like Binance Coin, FTT from FTX, like CRO from Crypto.com. These are all exchanges. They have tens of millions of real users. They they make 500 million $1 billion a year or more, and they're likely to be here. They're compliant or more compliant, anyways. They have the licenses. So compare that to some random altcoin with a crazy dream. I'd rather be safe and bet on a company and real users and a real company that's just going to be here. So I think that would probably be my choice.
Yeah, that's a really good strategy. And the model they use is very smart. It's like, okay, you got these millions of users and you have to pay fees to use our exchange. And you can pay with your fees with dollars or Bitcoin or whatever. But if you buy our token and pay your fees in our token, we'll chop the fees in half. And that's just a lot of people buying that token so that they can halve their trading fees. And that all that buying pressure pushes the price up. I think that was a big part of what Binance's success. And I think that's a really smart strategy you've got there. I am really into the cross chain stuff. I think that's the next evolution, which kind of ties into the next question I was going to ask you about. So I'll answer it. The question I was going to ask you is, what's going to be the next trend in the next bull market? So this year we had ICOs 2017, and then this time around we had DeFi and NFTs. What's the next big trend? And I think the next big trend is going to be cross-chain dexes, being able without centralized custodians to go from Ethereum to BNB or BNB to Bitcoin or BNB to a stablecoin, all those things without a centralized custodian. I think that is going to be the big magic. But what do you think is going to be that next big space that blows up?
That is actually a very difficult question, which is why I wanted to ask it for you and not answer it myself. But it becomes a little bit difficult. People are saying like, okay, gamify, like this crypto gaming thing is going to be the next big thing. But I actually don't think that's the case because in any like play to earn kind of crypto games, the incentive is always financial, and it just results in people not wanting to play. It just becomes, they hire these online, virtual assistants to play the game to make as much of it and then just sell it. And it always results in the currency going to zero. So I don't think crypto gaming is really going to be a thing.
Mm,
There'll be probably some speculation and hype around it, sure. But if it's really going to take off and be playable, I don't think so. I mean, video game companies have been around. They spend years making a game and spend hundreds of millions. Some random company that makes like a 2D Pokemon game and adds a coin to it. It just doesn't really work. So interoperability is interesting, like you say. Thor or Rune Chain, I think, or Rune, what is it called? Um,
Tarun, yeah.
yeah, I know. And Atom is working on it, Cosmos and ICX. There's a couple, Quant, I think, too. But actually, I'm not too sure. There might be something where we get something with digital identity, like for real, that it
Oh,
comes on and that everyone gets their own. We're starting to see it a little bit with the Ethereum domain names. Like people have that with the Web3 where it can unlock stuff. So maybe there might be something there, I think.
yeah. Yeah, all good space. And then you got the whole like the Second Life type stuff and the land grab in some of these virtual reality landscapes. Um, that's going to be interesting for sure. Uh, so let's go ahead and wind up there, guys. Any final thoughts with you, Dirk? First of all, let them know where they can find you. And remember, guys, link in the description. You can see the first part of this conversation, which was we talked about the macroeconomics. We talked about some really fun stuff in there. You're definitely going to watch it. You're definitely going to want to watch it. So head over to Dirk's channel. Before you do that, hit the like button here, hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what was the most enjoyable part of this conversation for you. And Dirk, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I think just looking in terms of like actionable stuff, we're probably going lower. I also think that I think we're gonna have like one final crash. It could happen pretty soon. My guess would be in September, October that it's gonna roll over just based on the time frame. Hopefully we get to set like a 10 to $14,000 Bitcoin level, which would create a lower low on the price. And hopefully we get that it creates a bullish divergence on the RSI. If we get that, I'm pretty confident the bottom would be in. We probably get, 3, 6 months of sideways accumulation. But hopefully we get that, which means, we could still go down 30 to 50% on Bitcoin and probably more than that on altcoins if that happens. So be prepared for that. Obviously, the good thing is if that happens and you have the risk capital and maybe were able to hedge or short or whatever and make even more profit from that, the opportunity is going to be huge, I think. I mean, the odds of buying that low and then holding it for 2 to 3 years, you could probably see 20x, 50x, maybe even 100x from those points. So that opportunity is coming if you're ready for it. And then, I don't think crypto is going to disappear. I think it's here to stay. I mean, everyone's investing in it, banks, institutions. We have BlackRock. We have, even throughout this whole bear market, we have had VCs invest something like 30 or $40 billion this year into crypto startups and infrastructure. So this is going to be here. But I think we do need a bit more shakeout, a bit more washout to get everyone thinking crypto is dead. And then during that time is obviously the best time to buy. So yeah, take advantage of that. Buy low and sell high. Don't do what other people usually tend to do.
Absolutely agree, 100%. A perfect spot to end. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Dirk. This was awesome. And guys, once again, like button, subscribe button, and that link in the description to go over to Dirk's channel and watch the very first part of this interview. You're going to love it. I can guarantee it. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you soon.